first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
Hi, everyone. This is a special episode of The Grip Show. My name is Eric Roussin. I'm here with your usual host, Zach Mullins, Will Guiliani from California, and everyone knows Jedd Johnson. So here we're talking about the International King Kong Grip Challenge. It's coming up in, well, the main contest date is the October 28th, but individual venues can start hosting as early as the 14th. So it's less than a week away for some venues. This is sort of going to be a predictions show talking about the various events, who might do well overall, that type of stuff. And yeah, that's today. I just wanted to announce it looks, all signs point to this should be the biggest turnout ever. We're over 30 venues. That's never happened before. I don't know exactly how many countries, but in many countries around the world. So if you don't know anything about King Kong and you want to find more information, I keep the contest thread on the grip board up to date. So if you want to see who's hosting a venue, and then if you want to try to find out how to compete, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we'll get you set up. So with that, guys, I'm happy to talk about this 4 events this year. In order, there's the 2.25 inch crusher. That's a thick bar lift, followed by the, I believe it's the, maybe you can remind me, is it the finish ball or the pinch block? I can't remember.
I believe it's the Iron Mine block is second.
Yep. Second, okay. Followed by the finish ball, followed by the 2.5 inch jug. Okay. So if we start with the crusher, do you guys have any predictions of who you think might win it overall, or what some of the top lifts would be, or any superstars in any of the lower weight classes? Does anyone want to start with any of that?
I think Arjuna Rakatari is going to win that event again this year. He just trains strongman, doesn't really train any grip implements specifically. So I don't see him rising up on the finish ball, but I think he's only gotten stronger from last year on these thick bars. And I think he's going to take it again this year.
Now he's only 2 years in. I think his first contest was King Kong 2 years ago. Is that possible?
His first contest was King Kong last year, I believe.
Oh, last year.
Yeah,
okay.
This is his first year, first full year.
Okay, so he had the top lift. I believe he had the top lift last year. I know he has the world record in is it the 2 3/8 Napalm Nightmare, I think? Or
I can check.
He's got a huge, like 550 or not 550. Maybe the 2 inch.
I think it is. I think it's like 550. Yeah, like 551 or something. It's up there.
For the 2 inch. For the 2 inch.
Yeah, he has the 2 inch. It's 250.05 kilograms.
And the 2 3/8, I think he may have the record as well. Or
no, just the one.
Okay. I don't know
what did he lift on that crusher last year? What was that top lift for the crusher that he did?
115.2 kilograms. That equals 253.96 pounds.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
And here's the funny thing about that lift is the knock bar spun around and it was going to land on his foot if he put it down. And the knock bar had already been bent a couple times that day. We straightened it out after much effort, and he didn't want it to get bent again. So when he picked it up and it spun around, he held it there for a few seconds. So someone come forward and straighten it out. And then, and only then, did he put the weight down. So it was like a 5-second hold with that weight.
And what's interesting is that was a 4-attempt contest. And this year, as you all know, it's last man standing, unlimited attempts. So if he was able to hold it at that weight, he might be, in the 260s or even more. That's crazy. Wow.
But he only won by 0.2. I see in last year's results, Alexei Tukulov had 115. So
okay.
So if Alexei Tukulov shows up to the training hall on Sunday, it will be an epic battle between them.
Which is going to push the numbers even higher, really.
Mm-hmm.
Scary.
there's also out of the Minnesota venue, Bryce Johnson. I think he lifts at Joel Burke's venue, but he's also apparently a really big guy, huge hand. He always is like in the top 3 in this event every year. So I think he'll get a lot of points there.
Yeah, I think those 3 guys that we just named are right up there for the top. Before Alexi got brought up, I was going to mention Alexi. I didn't know it was that close to AJ's lift, but yeah, I was going to mention that Alexi's pretty tough on the rolling handles. So yeah, that would kind of be most of what I would have to say about that specific event on who's going to take it.
Well,
so what do you think? Go ahead, Doug.
Just so you know, there is a chance. I don't know if you guys saw the video I put out a couple months ago. The old like assistant principal from Wyalusing may come to this contest, and his first time ever doing any grip at all, he lifted the 200-pound Selene iron dumbbell to his knee. So he's gonna be up there. He's gonna be up there. His hands are enormous. He's like 330 pounds, 6'6". So, and really has no idea what he's doing. So with that being the first event, I expect him to go all out if he shows up. I told him about the contest.
It's exciting stuff. So what do you guys think might be the top lift overall this year, given the change in format and given who we think might show up?
120 plus.
Oh, easy.
120 plus?
Yeah.
120 plus.
I would say somewhere in the 260s. Yeah, I mean, I know we're going back and forth in kilos and pounds here, but but yeah, I would be surprised if it cracks over 270. If it breaks 270, it would have to be maybe one lifter. I don't think there'll be multiple people that break that benchmark, but
so
probably
Carl, I don't think is competing in King Kong, but when he last competed, he lifted 264. So if he did 264, yeah, I don't think somebody's gonna get 270, but 260s I definitely see as possible.
I think we may have a threat to your 83 kilo crusher record if he shows up. Ben Galper, I think he's going to lift 100 kilos plus.
Cool.
He's a like a really strong rock climber guy. The first time he came up to the training hall, never did like thick bar stuff before. Just picked up the inch and then was like, "Wow, that was cool." And then we were like, "Hey, why don't you try and balance a can on it?" He did it just straight up, straight down.
That's awesome.
And he's been going to the training hall fairly regularly since. And I can imagine he's got a big lift in him.
Cool. All right. Well, maybe we can move on to the pinch block. Who do you think are some of the top guys to look out for in this contest, who are likely to show up?
I would say Hari Talonen.
I don't know if he's going to be in the contest.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to compete, but he competed last year, so I'm kind of just going off of people that are regulars or have competed.
He's definitely a perennial favorite in that in the pinch block, and I think he's set the world record at least once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
And but I saw something last week maybe that he was going to have to take off due to an injury.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate because we just had 2 people talk about his prowess in the event, probably being able to, put up a tremendous number, but I'm just not sure if he's going to be there. Hopefully he decides to do it and puts up a good number. I mean, it is a one-hand event and he's got 2 hands. So, but I don't know what the injury was.
Right.
So I don't have familiarity with this specific implement. I've lifted the Grip Genie 3-inch. How much harder or easier is this than the Grip Genie block?
I have no idea.
I would say
I'm going to say it's quite a bit harder because isn't it 6 inches in length?
Longer. Yeah, it's a little longer, so there's not as much maybe wrist play in it. And also, I feel like from lifting on both blocks in the past, I think there's a little more variance, so it might depend on which Iron Mine block or which kind of surface. You know what I mean? The surface can kind of vary a little bit, whereas I think the Grip Genie surfaces are pretty consistent. But Iron Mine has been around longer, so I think there's been some different runs of that. So I don't know if that would factor in, how well it takes chalk or something, and the fact that it's longer, that axis of having the longer block being down here, it's going to be harder to get as much wrist involvement probably. But beyond that, I've pulled on both, and my numbers are usually pretty pretty even on both. With all that being said, so it's not like it's some drastic 10 pounds on this one. Like I wouldn't say that. I'd say they're pretty close. So
I think we're going to see some people up over 100 pounds.
Yeah, like is Luke competing this year? Because Luke's one.
I believe he's planning on competing. Yes,
because his one hand pinch lifts are usually pretty strong.
Absolutely.
So he's a guy I had flagged. Steve Millard is also very good at one-handed pinch lifts. You yourself, obviously, if you're Justin Major will be competing. He beat us all at the Pinchford Games in this event 3 years ago. So and some of the lower weight climbers, they might not get over 100, but very good chance to get over 90 by guys like Ben Kosky and Tom Denmead. They're just super strong.
I think with the 6-inch lift over a lockout and wait for a down call, I think that's going to help the numbers. And especially if people have been training with the implement and they're familiar with the dynamics of the lift, that's going to contribute to bigger poundages as well.
Any predictions on what some of the top lift might be overall?
I would say like 100 and like maybe just over 110, like 100 something in the teens. I don't think anybody's going to lift 120. That would be probably a huge stretch. I think we could see some people break barely over 100 pounds, and then maybe a few, like I'm talking like 1 or 2 people might crack like 110 or 115. But then again, I don't know what Jedd's lifting on it. I don't know, what like Hari Talonen would be lifting on it, but I would say we're definitely going to see some low 100s. I just think if it goes up above let's say 110, for example, I would say that would probably be 1 or 2 like special people. I don't think that there's going to be like 10 guys lifted over 110 pounds. I don't see something like that happening, but that's just my prediction.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of the international competitors, because they're on the kilo system, I think those top lifters are going to shoot for 50 kilos. So that puts it around 110.
yeah,
So I think just psychologically, that's where a lot of it's going to end up.
that'd be a world record.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the world record on Iron Mind's website.
Gripsport.org. I'm seeing it at 49 kilograms by John McCarter back in 2018.
Another guy who I think is competing and who always does well in this event is John Matchnick out of California. He's got a really good, at one point, either he had the world record or he was right there. So he's another guy I think will go north of 100. But I think so. I think 110 is sort of going to be very close to the top.
So I just found the world records list for Iron Mind, which of course is to lockout, and Ari Talonen has the top 4 lifts on this device, and his best was 51.4 in 20.
Okay, and that would have been to lockout, and
yes.
And I don't know how strict they are with like chalk on the implement for those things, but if it's very strict the way the rules sometimes say they're supposed to be, then that's really impressive.
As I recall, the chalking rules came out around the 2019 Arnold and a little bit before that, and Ari set that record the last time on June 9th of 2018. And you can see there's a still shot here from a video where it's quite significantly chalked.
Okay, so it is comparable for our purposes for King Kong. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. If we move on to the finish ball, the weights for the finish ball are actually, I think, very similar to the weights on the pinch block. It'll be a little
very
less,
similar.
just a little under, I think. But who are some of the top guys or top lifts that you expect in that one?
That's the one event I'm hoping to do my best on, because I don't have an impressive crusher, and left hand is my pinch block hand, but right hand is my finish ball hand. So I'm looking, that's where I'm putting my main focus. This is kind of like a hunt for a record type contest for me.
Okay.
So did you just release new finish ball rules? Is that correct, Eric?
It's the same rules clarified, basically, because I had a question come in with a weird sort of grip, and they said, well, what do you mean by key pinch? So it's the same rules. It's just clarifying, it's thumb and index, that's the main thing. So there should be no, I hope that didn't create confusion, but yeah, I just revised the wording slightly.
In grip sport competitions, we've already had 3 lifts over 100 pounds that are on the records list.
Right.
Ari again with 103 and change. Ivan Pupchenko 104.5, and then Sirko Peterman with the overall 105.05 pounds.
Okay. There's a lot of people. I remember after King Kong, a lot of people, just when they were submitting the results, they're like, "Oh man, the finish ball, I know I could have done more, but on the contest," and I was one of them. Like, I was really disappointed with my finish ball lift last year. But so I wonder if the numbers might creep even a little higher this year. I was thinking if it's 105, I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a 107 something, Anyone?
Yeah.
Do any of you think it might go over 110?
I wouldn't say that, but like we were just talking about, like kind of the top lifters. Obviously like Ivan and Hari. Jedd, you were right there. I'm looking at it last year. Simon Stewart. I'm not familiar with Simon Stewart. If anybody else maybe is, they could speak on that, but he took 3rd. So I mean, Simon Stewart and Jedd were right there at 3rd and 4th for that event last year. And if Jedd is looking to kind of set a PR or, really make a statement this year with that lift, I think that any of those guys would probably be my first bets for it. Now, if I were to go with some background information, outside of what we're looking at through the sheets, and he took 7th in this event last year, was Joe Hodgson. But Joe Hodgson, I believe, has had somewhat of a technique breakthrough in training. And I won't say what he's been lifting, but if he lifts what he lifts in training, it will be it'll be right up there with probably the best of them. So I would throw Joe in there, even though he took 7th last year, with a lift that's kind of that finicky, give or take a couple pounds one way. I think if Joe dials in and lands his training lifts and kind of does what he's capable of, Joe might take that event. Like I said, I don't know what other people are lifting, but I have to throw his name in the mix because he was up in the top last year, and he is, I think, kind of like Jedd. He's expecting to do even better this year. So I think that'll be a good matchup between all those guys.
One of the factors about finish ball is that it's going to be the last event. So it's going to come down to how people have been preparing and what their endurance is going into that, because a lot of people tend to start to peter out especially after event 3.
Well, finish ball is 3. Finish ball is 3 this year.
Oh, it is 3?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We like to finish with the vertical.
True. Good call. I was looking at results from last year and I was thinking it was the same, but you're right.
Well, we had 5 events last year. That's why. 5 was it was a little experiment for the 10th anniversary, but I think overall it was just a bit too much for a contest. So
I haven't been training specifically on the finish ball, but I've been messing around with the Jokabug's Planets series.
Yeah.
Which are like 3 different sizes, key pinch.
Conjugate, baby.
And yeah, exactly. I'm doing pretty well on those. So I'm hoping that I can make a 10 kilo jump on my finish ball from last year.
A 10 pound or 10 kilo? What did you say?
10 kilo jump.
Oh wow. What did you get last year?
I had 30, but I think I have 40. I think I have 40.
Okay.
We've been working on this baby right here.
If we move on to the jug. So the jug, it's been a few years since we've had this in King Kong, but the numbers on the jug are typically, they will be higher than the numbers we see for Little Bighorn. So and there's a few guys in the Pennsylvania venue who do very well in this event. I'm thinking specifically of Luke and Jedd, who I think you guys had the top 2 lifts last time this was contested in King Kong, and you guys were both in the 290s, I think, or if not, they're very close.
Luke had a video review attempt. When he picked it up, the knock bar swung around about 90 miles an hour, and we weren't sure if it may have possibly grazed the crossbar, but it didn't. We had the like the crossbar height camera set up. We had to review it, but it was crazy how fast that thing rotated around. But he was really close to a 300-pound lift.
Oh. Obviously, another name to be on everyone's radar for this one is Tim Butler. I think he posted a training lift of over 300. I think.
Yeah.
So, man, we're getting to some pretty high numbers there. Anyone else that you think should do well in this event?
I'm sure there's a lot of others. That was the three that I had written down, based off of past performances. I had Jedd and Luke up there. Obviously, there's some people from the past that could pull big jug lifts, but like I said, I don't think they're competing. So I don't want to mention, I don't want to mention them if they're not even competing and it's just old records or something. But Tim was the other big heavy hitter I had in there, because anytime there's a V-bar lift, I don't know with this lineup. Yeah, I don't think that Tim Butler has a chance at the overall with this event lineup. I don't think he can put 4 events together to actually be up there in the mix, but Tim Butler's one of those guys with the V-bar lifts. He could shake up other people's scoring and kind of ruin the day for some other people if they have a weakness there, and he could take an event. He could take the event win. So, Tim, Jedd, and Luke was kind of where my head was at. And that's all American lifters. There may be some foreign lifters that I'm not too familiar with. Sometimes I know what people lift on, like rolling handles or rolling handles and thick bar, or I might know their pinch stuff, but sometimes I don't always know, for one, the jug hasn't been contested in a while, and I haven't been checking a lot of like other countries and what people lift on it. So it's tough for me to say for those guys, but within at least the US lifters, those were kind of the top 3 that I think are competing and will perform well.
Well, where's Ben at?
Ben would be right up there too. I've spoke with Ben, and I believe Ben's been in training. He's been upwards of 270, 280. He just I think he pulled 242 this last competition, but he was real annoyed with it because I think he was expecting more. So he pulled 240s, and I think had a shot at 250s or 260s and didn't complete the lift, but that's one of those lifts too. It's not to say that he couldn't show up and pull 280 or something. He might. But
same thing with Travis. I think he had a lot more in him than the 107.5. I didn't give him the 107.5 because the knock bar didn't actually hit the thing, but it clearly went higher. And I said no lift, but then we got it reviewed by the competition leader, and it was allowed. So I think by how strongly he lifted that lift, I think he definitely had a number of lifts left in him. He's really good at this vertical bar stuff. So I'm excited to see where he's going to land.
And Will, just so you're aware, it definitely counts. If you don't have to touch the bar. If you clear the height, that's a good lift. So I don't want any people disqualifying themselves for that.
Right, that's the PSA. That's why I brought it up, just so that doesn't happen again.
Right. In Canada, our top guy for verticals is James Jeffers. He's a strong man out of Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's quite at the same numbers of Luke, Jedd, and Tim, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got close to the 270 range. He's very good in the vertical lifts. Internationally, Juha Matti, Rautiainen, and Jesse Pignonen. I don't know if they're competing this year, but Juha Matti did get a really good lift last year on the Little Bighorn. So those are a couple of the names who should get up there.
Yeah,
maybe what about Thomas Larson? Have you seen anything from him as far as numbers that he's put out on the jug or any training?
I'm not aware. No,
his hands are just so big. I would think that he'd be pretty well equipped for it.
Given
how good he is on the anvil stuff, yeah.
He tested this in King Kong 2018 and hit 115.05. So that's already third on the list here for his weight class.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and when was that? 2018?
Yeah, that was King Kong 2018.
All right. I knew it must have been at least 2018 the last time it was run. And I bet Thomas has more in him now than that 115.
5 more kilos will give him the world record on that class lift.
So do you guys think that we're in star for someone getting over 300?
Oh, I think Tim will get over 300.
Yeah. What do you think? 305, 310? What do you think what's your prediction for Max?
Man, it seems like it was like 2 months ago that he put up the 300 plus lift that he did.
But it doesn't always mean on contest day, right? So
Yeah,
some people
that's
do
totally true.
and
It's also the last of 4 events.
And he's running his own location. Right?
And it's rising bar. So who knows how many attempts he's going to take.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you had to pick a number, what would you pick? Top lift on this event?
315 pounds.
315.
Yeah, I would say probably closer to 305, and I'm only undershooting it a little bit just because it is the last event and it is a competition. Whereas we're going off guys' training lifts. Now, if somebody was pulling like 330 in training, I might say, yeah, maybe 315 competition, but not always. Sometimes people hit competitions in PRs, but a lot of times guys, I don't want to say they underperform, but with a full competition lineup in front of them, they don't seem to hit all the training numbers exact all the time. So if Tim's pulling, I don't know what I didn't see the video, but if he's pulling 310, 315 in training, I don't know. Tim's kind of weird like that. Sometimes he'll show up and he'll overperform and you're like, holy shit, like he's on a roll. And then there's other times where, especially with a friction lift, you're just, 10 or 15 pounds shy of what you were doing in training. And it's just what happens that day. So I would probably lean closer to 305, but like I said,
how about you, Will?
I'm going to say 308 because that's even 140 kilograms.
Well, I'm gonna be, I guess I'm thinking no one's gonna break 300. I hope it happens. I think it's gonna be in the mid 290s. That's what I'm predicting.
Okay.
If we look at sort of maybe some of the favorites, and if you're not familiar with the class, that's fine. But do you have any? If we go by weight class and just who you think are the 1 or 2 favorites in that class? The lowest class never has many people, 59 kg. Last year there were 2. I think there will be more this year, probably 6 or 7, because I've introduced a lot of climbers in this area at least. I was thinking the guy who won it last year easily was a climber out of Colorado, I believe, Steve Millard's venue. And I think he lifted, he won all the events by a long shot, by the name of Jesse Hagedorn. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but he was very close to the pound for pound title. Like he was really crazy numbers for a guy who weighs 130 pounds. Anyone else have any opinions on that class?
I wouldn't be able to name enough people at that weight class. I would be going off of past lifts or, the same information that you've kind of been dealt with. I don't have any like secret people that are going to be at my venue at that weight that could do something. I have no idea.
How much is 147 pounds? How much is that in kilos? What weight class is that?
147 is in the 74. It's just a little too much for the 66. It's about 67.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a strict curler who's trying his hand at grip for the first time. There's actually 2 showing up, and they both have, over body weight curls. Both of these are like world record holders, strict curling people. So. And they're both lighter. So this one guy, Johnny Wong, he's coming. He'll be in I imagine he'll be in the 74 kilo class. I'm excited to see how that translates.
If we move to the 66, so that's about 145 pounds. I don't know if he's competing, but if he does, I think Yves Gravel would be definitely one of the favorites to win that class yet again. Once again, the 66 class has more than the 59, but not as much as 74. 74 is when the classes start getting bigger in terms of competitors. But does anyone else have any names for that class, 66?
I just say the same thing. I would just be repeating what you said.
Right. And if we go to the 74, so then we have a bit more, people who can compete with much heavier guys actually that weight class. Any names for that class?
I would go just by default with Ben Cossey. I mean, assuming Ben Cossey's competing again this year, it's hard to it would be hard for me to picture a 74 kg guy not only beating him at a single lift, or not only like beating him at just like one thing, but to put together all the events, because it's not like Ben, he's got good thick bar because his hands are big at that class, and then he like falls off on the technical lifts like a finish ball or something. Ben Cossey's strong all over. So, there's not really much of a weakness with Ben. So I think that across 4 events, I would favor Ben Kasi as long as he's competing.
One thing that's interesting is that if you just look at the results from the 74 kg class last year, fellow Australian Tom Denmead actually I think he beat Ben on 2 of the 5 events. So within the class with reverse strongman scoring, it was extremely close. But Ben, some of his numbers were so high on others that in the overall standings, he was actually, a few steps higher. But Tom is obviously, and Tom, I believe, has won the 74 before. So that Australian group they don't have any weaklings over there. Everyone's seemingly very, very strong. So it's exciting to see. But yeah, I think it's going to be won by an Australian, probably Ben. And the 83, it changes a bit every year. It's not like always won by the same person.
Right.
Last year, I think it was won by Johannes Lampinen out of, I'm guessing, Finland. He does well in most events. Like he did well in the Super Series. I don't know if he won this year or last year, but he's probably one of the guys I think would be the favorites. Jedd, is Clint in that class, or he's probably the 93, I think.
I think he's going to be at 93. I think he has competed in 83 before, but I think right now, with the way his training is going, he'll be at 93, but I could be wrong.
William Reed will be in the 83 kilogram class, I believe. And
oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I think he's a little sturdier this year. So I think he'll have a good placement in that. I think he actually decided to participate in King Kong a little last minute, so not a lot of dedicated training to the implements. And I know based off of his last competition that he'll do well in at least 2 of these events.
Okay, he's very good with the vertical. I know that.
Yeah, he's good with the vertical. He's good with the rolling handles. I think he might suffer on the finish ball a little bit. But I think he'll probably top 5 in the 83 class after coming up from last year.
Okay. If we go to the 93, in my mind, Luke is always a favorite in that class, and I know he's won it a few times. To me, he has he's my pick to win this year. If he's not injured, I don't know how strong he is right now, but Luke, I know he loses a few points on the thick bar, but he does so well on the pinch and the vertical that so I think he's one of the favorites. And Santeri, who won it last year, also pretty well balanced. He's another one of my favorites, I think. But there's always a lot of strong guys in that class.
Now, just a quick question on this, Eric, and Jedd, you might be able to answer this for me better. I know Luke has extremely strong pinch, like 3-inch Saxon and stuff. Is this like 3-inch block on par with his other pinch? Because a lot of Luke's most powerful stuff is a little narrower than 3 inches. For a single hand 3-inch pinch, is he still on par with like the his other pinching lifts?
Yeah, Luke
okay.
on the Iron Mine block specifically, Luke has historically always been better than me on the device.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just want to double check because I know his narrow pinch is really like on fire with like the plate pinching and other stuff he's done and things like that. And I know his 3-inch Saxon is pretty strong. I just wasn't sure if that block was any different just because it is a 3-inch, a little wider. But yeah, Eric, I agree. I think Luke maybe gives up a little bit on the rolling handle there, but across those other, 3 out of 4 events, he's just be tough to beat.
Yeah. 105. So
I was going to bring up one more. Sorry. If Tim Butler's at 93, Tim might suffer a little bit on the pinch block, but Tim has strong pinch, but it's kind of hit or miss, and it's the blobs and whatever. It depends. But with the jug, Luke can kind of go, lift for lift with him on the jug, so it kind of neutralizes Tim jug. I mean, Tim usually has like a bigger jug, but Luke could hang with him. So if Luke was to, take the jug, then I don't think Tim would have much of a shot on the rest. But I think Tim beats him on the rolling handle, and if Tim could secure a jug win, that could be 2 out of 4, and then it might depend on how the other placements go. So, considering Luke might give up some points to Tim Butler on a rolling handle, and if Tim could secure maybe a couple placements on the jug by chance, that could be an interesting battle between those guys. And then Eric, are you doing 93?
I'm doing 93. Yeah.
I would throw you in the mix too. I mean, I don't know how much, I know you don't want to say yourself, but you're always a top competitor, regardless of the lineup. You're somewhere, at the top. So, maybe there's something about your lifting and some of these other guys, and you're predicting they might have an edge on some lifts, but I wouldn't be surprised to see you, Luke, Tim, all maybe a couple other people like we mentioned, right there in that top 5.
And I think a lot of it is going to come down to Eric's seasoning, his chalk seasoning on the implements. I've lifted at Eric's place, and he does not have an environment that seems to be conducive to the chalk sticking on the implements. So I don't know if anything's changed. If he's hunted down, like maybe he put out some headhunters to go find a properly seasoned device for a change, but that could be a difference maker for Eric's lifts.
Eric, I definitely think if I was, pardon?
Do you need a humidifier?
I don't know. Maybe I do actually. Yeah, I should, because I do think my numbers would be better in different venues for some of these lifts. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm trying different things, but I'm struggling with the seasoning. But anyway, if we move to the 105, Ivan Popchenko won it last year, and he's a motivated guy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him right into the top of standings. I know Jedd, this was, I think, a one-time thing for you to, maybe not a one-time thing, but a rare thing to see you in the 105 last year. So I'm nowhere near
that this year, brother.
Yeah. And then Harry, if Harry's competing and he's not injured, he's always always a favorite. Any other names?
Well, I see Joe Hodgson and Steve Millard are in that class. That's going to be, it's probably a showdown.
Joseph, if we just use the finish ball, like if he all of a sudden adds 5 kilos to his lift and he can move up a few spots, then it doesn't take much to shake the standings up, in this type of contest. So, yeah,
especially with the implements that have like a lighter weight, like every fraction matters that much more versus like the 2-inch nightmare where percentage point is like I don't know.
Right.
I feel like
Will, that's a perfect point. And I'm not going to go on like some something about me and last year, but like I only lifted like 70 pounds on the finish ball, whereas like Clint Ziegler went up and lifted like 90 pounds or more.
Mm-hmm.
And like that killed me for being in the 93 class because I had like much better lifts across other things. And Clint Ziegler took 3rd place last year at 93. And we had some pretty close lifts across the board, but I was probably, like you guys are mentioning, maybe like 5 or 6 pounds, or just one more higher lift on the finished ball probably bumps me 3 or 4 places, so you go from like 8th place in your weight class to a 3rd or 4th place finish if you just hit one more lift, especially on a lift like the finished ball. So that's a really good point with the percentage. Well, it's not percentage based, it's the reverse strongman, but 5 pounds can drop you off. Right. One wrong move in this competition can completely erase you out of class standings or overall standings. So
sure.
It's always a tight race.
Yeah. If we go to the 120, you have any favorites in that class?
Anybody got anything on that? I would say, I would think Jedd would be right up there. Some of these people, I'm not sure of their weights. I don't know if Alexi's 120 plus or 120.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I would say Alexi, Jedd, and we have to mention, Jedd has took 2nd place the last 2 years. So for we're not going to mention him for the 105 class because he doesn't weigh that this year. But for being 120, I would say, I would look for Jedd to probably win that class or be right there at the top. And that's just based off of not only what he's done for however long, but he's been basically the runner-up last 2 years in a row for the overall. So
right.
I assume he'll do well in his class, especially.
I appreciate that, but I like Brad Provik's chances. He finished number 1 last year. So I think he's going to be right there.
Yeah, and I know he it's very rare that you're happy with all your lifts in any contest, but he was very disappointed with his finish ball. So I expect he'll pump that number if he has, if he performs a little better. So yeah, I think he has a good shot at getting near the very top as well. And if we go to the supers, Ardo is always in the mix. I mean, he's always right near the top, if not at the top in that class.
Yeah.
Jason, very consistent. Jason, any other names?
I think AJ Rakatari is gonna show up, do well. I think he'll improve on his place from last year.
Is he balanced enough? Like, what's his how are his other? I know he's amazing in the thick bar, but how are his other lifts? I haven't looked.
He's got a really strong pinch. I don't know how it is one-handed, but his pinch is really strong.
Okay.
So he beat Ode on the 2x5 inch. At the last contest, I think he hit 140.5 on that pinch.
Okay.
So I know he has good pinch and he's got a good thick bar. His finish ball is going to tank him, but the vertical bar he'll do really well with because he's got baseball mitts.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's exciting. So if we were to look sort of overall, who do you think has a good chance of finishing right near the top of the overall standings this year?
I gotta pull for my man Jason Dingy. I think he's on a roll and he's been doing every version of thick bar possible. Always good at pinching. Maybe he's got his eyes set on this contest as the time he finally gets up on the platform and takes first place.
Right. I mean, the guys who are really some of the guys we didn't really mention in the individual list, but they're such great generalists. And I put Jason in that group. Is that he's not the number one guy in any of these four lifts, but he's right up there on, near the top on all of them. And that's what you need to win one of these contests.
He's like Martins, just stay consistently second and third place and everything and win the whole thing.
Right, exactly. So these guys were well balanced. So Jedd, I put you, I know, although you often win individual events, I put you as a very good overall. So I think that's why you're near the top every year. Ivan, I mean, he won it last year. Every year he keeps getting better and better. So he can't, anyone who's won it before has got to still have a chance of winning again.
Yeah.
Harry, if he's in shape.
And we don't have a Texas venue this year, right?
No.
Unfortunately, no Texas venue.
Okay, so that basically rules out Tanner.
Yeah.
Who's won it 3 times?
Yeah.
He won it 3 times in a row, yeah. Alexi and Joseph, those 2 guys, I think top 5 easily. Not easily, but they have a good chance of being top 5. Yeah. So if you had to pick one guy, who do you think is winning the whole thing?
Ooh. Let's see. It'd be, like I said, it's hard because I think it would be from this pool of names.
Right.
We got to narrow it down, but like you said, I would say, Ivan, Jedd, Arto, Brad Provic, Hari Talonen, Jason Dingy, Alexei Tukalov, Joe Hodgson. I think the winner might come from that pool of 8 names.
Yeah.
It's just which one. Yeah. Narrowing one out of those 8 is very, very tough, especially depending on the event lineup and what we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with people's training and personal life, whatever. I think that an interesting one like Jedd had there was Jason Dingy, because we didn't mention him during the individual events like you talked about, but we talked about the well-roundedness. So, it doesn't matter if it's like a doubloon, key pinch, finish ball. Jason's one of the big guys that can pull the big thick bar, the big pinch lifts, but he doesn't drop off when it comes to the hub and the finish ball. He's equally dangerous. So,
yeah. I think the finish ball becomes like a difference maker in King Kong.
Yeah.
AJ that competes with Will is phenomenal. He's a monster, but a lot of times those big hands get negated by the finish ball. So I see him dropping big time if that's the case for him.
All right, so Zach, you're going to go with Jason then?
Yeah, and some people might think that's a long shot, maybe whatever. I'm just going to say Jason because of the well-roundedness, and like I said, he might not even have an event win, or he might pull off one event win and then not have 3 other event wins. But I don't see any lifts where he's going to give up a lot of points. I think he's going to place high across the board, and for this kind of scoring setup, yeah, like I said, just for the sake of picking it. Now it could be any of the people I named,
Right.
but just for the sake of, well, at least give us an answer, I'll say Jason Dingy.
And I'm going with Jason too, because I know for a fact he left weight on the table at nationals this year. He had more in him after his 4 attempts were used up. I think the last man standing format is going to be something that is on his side. So I think that's a big factor.
I would note, Jedd, he's also coming off of a Super Series win. So
That's true.
I know Carl didn't win, or Carl didn't participate. So we that could be a debate, whatever. But for those who competed, I mean, Jason's kind of got some confidence coming in off of, that last man standing format is what the Super Series utilizes. So this will be King Kong with a last man standing format. Jason just took a multi-venue competition with some of the biggest names that, their event lineup's a little different, but yeah, I mean, Jason's coming in with that kind of good result from that kind of competition format and the well-roundedness. I think that the last man standing, like Jedd's bringing up, mixed with his well-roundedness, if he doesn't win, it'll be right there. But for the sake of picking somebody,
For me,
that'll be mine.
I believe Arto Gironin is going to do something and King Kong champ. That's my bet.
Last year when he submitted his results, he was all like, in sending them, he was, man, I had an off day. He was like disappointed with all his lifts, and he was 3rd overall. and he thought he was like, I don't know what he thought, but he didn't think he'd done that well. So yeah, he's a good pick as well. Well, Jedd, I'm actually going to predict you, if you're not injured and you can compete in these events, I'm going to go with you just because you're so consistent, and I think you're really good at showing up on game day. So I'm going to go with Jedd. So we got 2 for Jason, 1 predicting Arto, 1 predicting Jedd. It'll be fun to see. I did do some number crunching. So obviously you don't have to win individual events, but the scores, if you can come up to this approximately this type of mix, then I think you have a shot at winning 1st overall. So pinch block, I said if you can get, based on my quick analysis, you can get around 95 or a little above on pinch block. Crusher, if you can get 235 and or above on crusher. Jug, 265, 270. Finish ball, 92, 93. If you can get those numbers, in my opinion, you have a good shot at winning the whole thing.
Seems good, right?
So, it's hard to get those numbers on all 4 events. You might be able to get 1. It might, and if you're good, maybe 2. But it's going to be hard to get those types of numbers on across the board. But if you do, in my opinion, in a contest like this that'll have more than 250 entries, I think that's sort of what you need. So that's for people following along if they want to have an idea of sort of what type of mix. Obviously, if you do really well and exceed those numbers on one, you can get a little less on another, but that's sort of where those numbers represent sort of like the 6th spot on average across these King Kong events. And if you the winner will get a score in the 20s, I believe. If you go below 20, which has been done before, I remember Tanner in his best year, he won with a score of 14. That's a good score on King Kong. But normally on a 4 event, it's sort of in the low 20s that the person wins. But anyway, we haven't talked about the women, and I haven't analyzed the results as much. I do want to point out, when King Kong started, we had 1 open women's class. This year, we have 6 women's weight classes plus a Masters women. So, a lot more chance to compete. I can understand not wanting to compete against open weight. Now you have 6 weight classes and 50 plus is separate. So there's really, if you're a woman, you're just getting into the sport, you can compare your numbers with other people of your approximate size. It's a lot more fun. I think Sarah, I'm going to call her for the overall win again. I mean,
you got to.
it's I mean, at the Arnold's, it was really fun to see Gabby Dixon show up and extremely good at the thick bar. And actually, I think she beat Sarah in the Arnold's, but the Arnold's is only a small handful of events. I think King Kong is a little more varied and it brings different strengths into play. And I don't even know that Gabby's competing in King Kong, but Sarah, she's the woman to beat in this contest.
I would agree. And yeah, and it's one of those things where like that, and we all kind of know this, but that like Arnold kind of lineup, there are certain people that like, okay, if they have a huge axle deadlift, they're set up very well for that format. And then this is like almost a totally different game. So like, Gabby coming in and lifting very, very well was very impressive, but there's certain lifters that they'll be like right there at the top for that format. And then we talk about these, I guess, I don't want to say more technical, all lifts are technical, but maybe more of a finesse lift. And you can't just, walk up, it takes a little more like time and knowledge to understand the implement. And if you're not training it, I think that we just see differences between who wins those bigger competitions. And then some are like that format with like, okay, there's like 2 big deadlifts and maybe one oddball thing. And then here there's like 4 different disciplines, that usually always changes who's winning what. Because there's guys that were at the top for the Arnold the last couple of years, and then you look at where they place in King Kong, and they're like nowhere. They're nowhere to be found, But they could perform very well. So that was good to see them go head to head at that. But yeah, with this format, I would still probably lean towards Sarah winning. Just the familiarity with the events, having done it before, the past track record, and I'm not too familiar with the runner-up last year.
Hilda.
Yeah,
she's a beast.
But yeah, I'm not too familiar with it. But like I said, just you don't know what that person's been doing in the meantime, and if they're newer to the sport or they haven't, seen some of the implements. Once they get another year under their belt, if they add 5 or 10 pounds here or there, that could shake things up. So you always have to kind of, I guess kind of like we say, the last year's winner, of course they have a chance to win it again the next year if they've won it in the past. Well, I think if someone was a runner-up like Jedd last year. Absolutely. I think you got to say that, the runner-up was second. So there's always a chance they make some improvements and adjustments and come back too. So I would still lean towards Sarah overall, though.
Hilda came to Living Legends. Didn't she come to Living Legends in 2019?
Yeah, she's Thomas Larson's training partner.
Right.
They do a lot of training together. She's really strong and got a good hand on her, good experience. So I think she's got a good chance to finish top 3 in King Kong. And the other name that you see a lot is probably going to butcher it, Marja Lowry.
Mm-hmm.
She's often right up there. And of course, Melissa Dingy. It'll depend. Her performance has a lot to do with her specific training on the contest events. And I go back to 2020's results. The winner in the women's category was Patricia Luxner, but I haven't really seen her do much of the grip sport stuff the last couple of years, Eric.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they were considering hosting this year, but they're not. So we're not going to be seeing her or Circo this year.
Her competition partner, I don't know what their relationship is. They're involved a lot in a lot of the same contests. Circo Peterman, he's the one that holds the world record on the finish ball.
Right. I'm going to go and call. I think Tammy will finish second overall.
I agree.
She's continuing to hit PR. She got 3rd overall last year. I think she's going to finish second to Sarah, and it's so impressive considering her size. It's crazy. So I think she's easily going to win her class and pull up finish second overall. So that's what I'm predicting for the women.
Do you think she's going to take any events away from Sarah?
Not the thick bar.
If there's one, I think it's maybe
Finish ball.
The finish ball, maybe.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Yeah, if it would be one event, it would probably be the finish ball because, like I said, the rolling handle and a 3-inch block and 2.5 inch jug.
Yeah.
I see Sarah kind of taking those. I won't say fairly easily, but I think there'll be a little bit of a gap there. The finish ball is kind of that like wild card. You don't really know. So with the strong fingers and stuff like that, maybe I don't know. Maybe she pulls that one off, but yeah, I do see her probably finishing right there, second or third place, Eric. So
any other predictions or anything else that you guys wanted to discuss or ask or anything about King Kong this year?
Was Jen Tibbenham the woman that Tammy was mentioning in her interview with you?
Yeah, and she took 5th place last year.
Correct.
So she had a top five finish as well. So
I'm not sure I follow her, and frankly, a lot of the women don't seem to put out a lot of grip videos for me to see. So I'm not sure, but she was top 5 last year.
Yep.
And I know that she's got experience. So, it's a name to keep an eye out for.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Jed. Another thing I would say is, Eric, is Amy Waddles hosting a venue? I see that she's sanctioning some competitions and possibly getting back into competing.
She's not hosting a King Kong, no. So I'd be surprised if we saw her, but it would be great if we did.
Okay,
Eric,
I wasn't sure about that.
I also have a question, Eric. I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see Sarah's name down as a contest promoter. Did I miss it, or is she going to travel somewhere to do the contest?
Yeah. So I think she's probably traveling to Steve Millard's, I believe.
Yeah. I think that's what she said. I watched an interview with her recently, and I think she stated in the interview she was going to be traveling.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else. Like I said, I just thought of maybe the Amy Waddles thing, just because like when you start seeing somebody like, oh, they're hosting events again, or oh, they've been mentioned by some of these other women lifters. I just thought that, maybe she's not hosting, but maybe she does like meet up with Tammy or somebody else at one of these other venues in the same area. And maybe that's a name that we don't have on the results from last year, but that's somebody that's kind of, maybe known that could shake things up as well. So just worth a mention.
I think she could shake the top 5 up, but I think the intricacies of the finish ball, she would drop way down.
Mm-hmm.
I think she could thick bar her way to the top 2, probably. Jug, not quite sure about that. And I don't know about the 3-inch pinch block. It's hard to tell, but I think she could say, okay, I'm going to go do this and come in the top 5.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think Sarah's got enough time under her belt dedicated to these contests the last 3 years that she's just about unbeatable, unless there's somebody out there that we don't even know about. Does Becca Roberts show up at a venue? Is there one in England? But she's been doing a great deal of strongman training lately.
The only implement that Sarah didn't get first place in was the finish ball last year, and she just posted something on her IG recently saying the finish ball is finally starting to make sense. So maybe she shored up her weaknesses, and she's going to make a sweep this year.
Well, she's on the grip authority, and I know that she's definitely increased her finish ball. So I didn't see that post, but it makes total sense. I think she's just about bulletproof for this contest, unless she comes down with illness or, throws her back out, God forbid. But, those are the kinds of things that could really hinder someone's performance. And even then, she probably has a pretty good padding.
Yeah.
So
King Kong, I know I'm the lead promoter, but it's always an exciting contest. There's an element of luck, right? With the way it's scoring and the multi venues, and we're not all lifting in the exact same conditions, and I think everyone understands that. Ideally, we'd have 300 people in the same room on the same elements, but that's not possible. What I would like to point out, though, is the cream always rises to the top. If you look at the top 10, top 20, the people near the top, there's no real surprises. So it's the contest that I most want to win, but it's, to my opinion, the hardest contest to win. So, it's to me, I always look forward to seeing, how the results play out. And I know a lot of people sort of see it as a world championship. I would never call it a world championship, because any multi-venue contest I have issues with calling. unofficial title like a world championship or a national champion. I think those titles should be won in the same room on the same equipment. But for what it is, I'm really pleased with where it's grown to and where it keeps growing. So I look forward to this contest every year.
Yeah, it's great. I've competed in it every year that I've done grip, except for the pandemic year, and it's one of the contests I most look forward to. I like the unique fact that it's all one-handed lifts, as opposed to so it's really just about the grip.
Right.
And for the record, I do consider it a world championship contest.
Right.
You may humble, but I'll put you up on that platform.
That's pretty much.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was going to wrap things up unless you had something else to add.
Just I went back and revisited Ari's Instagram just in case he might have been sandbagging a little bit. And he's got a picture of a gigantic bruise on his thumb, like he tore something in his thumb. And he says his competition season for 2023 is done. Damn, my King Kong prep went so well. So a late season injury looks like it took him out of the event.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That was Ari Talonen.
Oh,
tough to hear.
Right hand. So that was his pinch hand.
Yeah. Jedd, you know what? A few years ago, I want to give credit to people who compete through injury. Jedd, I remember this is a few years back, but I think you had hurt your bicep, like your vertical lifts went really down. I don't remember what it was, but you competed anyway. And your result overall was way down from where you normally were. But I really, I was impressed because a lot of people just said, one thing goes wrong, I'm not going to compete because I don't want my numbers to be lower. But I really appreciate that you competed anyway. And you still did way better than most people. But not everyone would do that. So I think
you shouldn't compete for your ego. You should compete because you enjoy to compete. And if you go into it injured, you're gonna do worse. But like, do it anyway. Like, have the fun.
Yeah.
If anything, right now there's not as much obsessive compulsive pressure that I'm putting on myself because of my left hand injury. So it's actually a different feeling right now from what I'm used to. So it kind of brings a level of excitement about the contest back rather than dreading a day where I have to obsess over every little thing. So,
right.
I come from an era when there weren't a bunch of contests every month. So you had to kind of get your contests in when you could. Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of how it is.
Well, Zach, I want to thank you for allowing me to sort of organize this call. I think people liked it. I think it'll help build the excitement. I mean, the first venues are less than a week away. It is the world's biggest grip contest by in terms of competition participants. So I think 300 is the number I've been trying to hit for the past 5 years. Every year, I think we're going to get it. We're not there yet, but maybe this year. So we're over 30 venues. If we average 10 people per venue, it's definitely possible. And I do think there will be a lot more women. So I think that'll really help boost the numbers.
Well, and Eric, I thank you for, one, obviously organizing the competition and everything you're doing with it and kind of taking the lead on this call and everything. Will, thank you for, giving us kind of the West Coast insight and kind of bringing, you're hosting out there, we're so far away, there's so much distance between a lot of us that it's nice to get takes from all the way across the US or outside the US, and in one call. So I think that's good. And then, like I said, Jedd, just thanks again for helping out with some of these things where, you're pulling up numbers or stats. We're all kind of working together, trying to, put together a good prediction show. And I just thank all three of you for doing this. And this would technically, people have asked or kind of, I guess, done predictions during episodes or, hey, what do you think about this? But this would technically be the Grip Show's first kind of, this would be like the first full episode that was dedicated to a prediction for an upcoming competition. So like I said, we've talked about, hey, this competition's coming up for you. What do you think? But this is the first time we've actually sat a panel down and assessed, the results or how we think the this year's event's going to turn out. So thank you guys for just being a part of the first prediction series, I guess, because this will be done in the future with other competitions. But thanks for taking the time, and hopefully the people have predictions of their own. And when this goes up, hopefully they'll interact and comment down below, oh, I think so-and-so is going to win this class and you're wrong about this one. I would love to see more engagement from the comment sections and stuff like that, more topic discussion going on. And I don't know, if anything, like I said, whether you agree or whether you disagree, I just would like to see the people watching, give us your take, give us your opinion on what you think. Because like I said, these are just our opinions. We don't know. We're just.
Hey, can I throw one more name out there that could be an X factor and shake up a couple of these events?
Yes.
Just real quick. There's the guy that came to nationals last year, Zach, Benny Boy Lifts. He's friends with Timmy, and Timmy's running his own venue this year. So maybe this will finally pull Benny Boy Lifts out of his house and get him onto a platform. And he is super, super strong.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I know he had a bicep injury for a while, so I don't know that he's in top form, but if he were, that could really shake things up.
It definitely could. I would say, especially on the thick bar, his thick bar, it's similar to kind of like AJ, where he's very dominant on like the thick bar stuff. But the more you start getting into like blocks and finish ball, I don't know that the technical stuff is there. The brute power and like just
power.
It's definitely there.
Yep.
But yeah, aside from that, I think he could definitely shake up maybe an event or two.
Yes.
But as far as overall, I think there's just probably still some more work there that would need to be done. But absolutely, with an event, I'd be interested to see what he could pull on a 2 1/4 crusher.
Yep.
Just knowing that he can like thumbless lift 190-pound inch dumbbells and stuff, like, and almost transfer them thumbless to thumbless. Yeah, I would love to see that strength transferred into a crusher lift. But will we see it? I don't know. But yeah, that's a good addition there, just to kind of mention. There could be some X factors we don't know about, and maybe it's nobody on our list and somebody new emerges. That would be pretty rare, but still possible. So
you heard it first. You heard it here first. I'm going to win the whole thing.
Okay. But I mean, does anybody have anything, like any last last words for the prediction show?
I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I love the Grip Show. I buy the t-shirts, they're great. And I'm just happy to be a part of it, and I'm really looking forward to the contest and how it shakes out. Is there going to be a results show for King Kong?
I would like to do one. Yeah. So I mean, that's something me, Eric, or whoever could discuss. And I don't know if it would be, maybe we stick with the same panel just for consistency. That way, hey, you predicted so-and-so and you were right or you were wrong. So maybe we keep the same panel for this competition. And then, that would be something kind of cool. So yeah, I would definitely going to do a recap and do results coverage. If we're able to schedule it, maybe make it even the same panel so we can kind of assess how all of us, how all of our opinions kind of panned out. That would be fun. But yeah. So yeah, there's definitely going to be contest coverage and, for this contest and many more. So
sweet, man.
Cool.
All right then.
Well, good luck, everyone.
You too.
We'll touch base later.
All right. Yep. Good luck to everybody competing in King Kong. And like I said, let us know those predictions.